In this question here, we are looking at an archway, a parabolic archway, that is 30 meters wide and it's at its base and 18 meters high. So what I'm going to begin with is a diagram of what this looks like. Now I can draw my parabola in many ways. If I wanted to, I could draw it from the origin over to here, or I could draw it from, say, the left side over to the origin, or I can draw it in the center so that the origin goes through the vertex, or I can draw it at some random point. It really does not matter where you draw it, but as a guiding point, I would recommend that you try drawing it in such a way that the coordinates are easy to read. And in this case, there's three possible scenarios. You can draw it either on one end or draw it on the other, as I mentioned. But I would suggest for this question, we're going to draw it through the middle. Okay, so I'm going to draw a smooth parabola through the middle and maybe move it over a little bit. There we go. So our vertex is right at the top. Again, it's not perfect, but it renders the idea quite well. And what we know is that at the base, this archway is 30 meters. So from here to here, I have 30 meters. And therefore, if this is the center of the origin, one end is going to be 15 meters out, and the other end, again, think of this as the x and y axis, is going to be negative 15 meters to the left side. And the maximum, the height, well, we know that occurs at 18 meters. So that's the apex of this bridge here. So there's our diagram. It's, again, a guiding principle to how we're going to solve these questions that are asked from us. And the first one is to find the equation in factored form. So factored form means that I have to identify some roots. And if I look closely, I do have two roots. Here's one at negative 15, 0, and here's the other one at 15, 0. So let's start writing that out. So for part A with the roots, I'm going to have h for height equals my a value, I don't know what it is, x minus the first root, and then x minus the second root, r and s being the roots that I'm looking for. Now, I know my roots are, the first one is 15. The second one is negative 15, so that makes this guy here a plus 15. Now I'm almost done. What I need now is a value for a, because that'll tell me how wide, how narrow my arc is going to be. And in order to do that, I need another point on this parabola that I haven't used already. I've used the roots. I know they lie on the parabola. The only other obvious point is my vertex. My vertex here, it has coordinates of 0, 18. And that's what I'm going to use in my equation to solve for a. So let's replace my h value with 18, because that's the height. I have a, and I'm going to copy this whole thing over here. But instead of x, which I will delete right now, I'm going to substitute a 0, because that's what my x value is, and carry out my operation. So I have 18 equals negative 15, and 15 is 225, and that's negative a. Divide both sides by negative 225, divide by negative 225. They cancel here, and my a value is, in simplified form, negative 2 over 25. Again, both top and bottom are both divisible by 9, and there's your a value. So I can rewrite my final expression right now. Let me just take, say, this version, copy it, paste it here, and put an h in front. So I'll have an h here. And instead of my a value being unknown, I know it is now negative 2 over 25. So this answers our first part. Let me just take this guy here, copy, and put it right underneath where my answer goes. Maybe shrink it a bit. There you have it. So there's our equation in factored form of the archway. Next, I want to find the equation in vertex form. So vertex form, in case you forgot, looks like this, and I'll do it over here at the side. Y, or in this case h, equals the a value, x minus h, and I can't use h again, so I'll have to use a different variable. Let's say x minus d squared plus k, where d and k represent the values of the vertex. Now we know already that our vertex is 0 and 18, so I'm going to have x minus 0 squared plus 18. And if I simplify this expression, I get ax squared plus 18, because x minus 0 is just x, and if I square x, I get x squared. Once again, we're stuck with having to solve for the a value. And what I can do is substitute in one of these points, either the root negative 15, 0, or the root 15, 0. Either way, I plug them into the equation, I will get an identical a value. So let's substitute the point, say 15, 0, into this equation for h so that we can solve for a. So my h value is 15. My a value is unknown. Actually, it's not 15. Yes, it is. And it's not 15 here. It's 0 here. So 15 goes here for my x value, and plus 18. So if I bring the 18 over, I have negative 18. Square the 15, I get 225a. Divide both sides by 225. Cancel, cancel, and you get your a value is equal to negative 2 over 25 once again. Is it a surprise that it's identical to the previous a that we had in the factored form? Not at all. Okay, we didn't have to do all this work. I just did it to illustrate a point in that the a value, whether you're looking at vertex form, factored form, standard form, is always going to be the same. So this was unnecessary, but if we do it once, at least we can see why this is true. So my final equation for the in vertex form will be h. So h equals, once again, negative 2 over 25, and I'm not going to translate it into a decimal yet, times x squared. You know what, no need for those brackets. And then plus 18. So times x squared, and then plus 1/8. There we go. So we have two different equations representing the exact same parabola. Next, we're going to look at the height of the archway, 5 meters from the end. This is part C. So 5 meters from the end, what does that mean? Here I look closely at my diagram. Let's pick, say, this end over here. 5 meters from it, so if I go inwards, will bring me to the value of negative 10, because that's 5 meters from negative 15. So what I want to find out is, what is the height? In other words, if I were to follow this up, look straight up from the ground to my arch, I want to ask myself, well, what is this going to be? Okay, and to figure that out, I can quite simply just take my value of negative 10, plug it into any one of the two equations, and solve. So let's take that negative 10 and substitute it into, I don't know, let's take the vertex equation, so the one from part B. I'm going to copy this again, and I can actually do my work right in here. Paste it around, and instead of x, I'm now going to have negative 10 squared. So negative 10 squared. If I do my math, I get negative 2 over 25. Negative 10 squared is 100. plus 18. And if you add these all together, you are left with, let's see here, 4, negative 8 plus 18, you're left with 10. So there's your answer. The height 5 meters from the end is 10 meters high. So this is 10 meters above the ground. And by the way, again, using the symmetry of parabola, I could tell you that at this point, that's also going to be 10 meters, but in a positive, for a positive value of 10. For the last part, we're asked to find the width of the bridge 10 meters from the ground. Now what that means is, if I go up 10 meters, in other words, if I go up here 10 meters above the ground, what is this line going to be in terms of its length? How far is this going to be? Question mark. Now this is interesting because I actually don't really have to do any calculations here because I've done all the work already. Okay, I found this root here to be negative 10, or not a root, but the value of negative 10 is where it's going to be a height of 10. And I know by symmetry that the height is also going to occur at 10. So the distance between these two guys, well, just go 10 minus negative 10 is 20 meters. And that is the width of our archway, 10 meters above the ground. So to answer this last part, we can just put 20 meters over here, and we are done.